And hit the record button and begin by sharing my screen. And we will get going. So this is our final class of the 12 universal laws. Can you believe it?
Wow.
I know.
Really? This is it?
This is
This is it?
it. This is the last universal law. We've gone through all 12. I know it's shocking because we've never moved this fast before.
No, we have not.
But I made a commitment to do it, and do it we did, right?
Mhm.
We did it. So this is it. We are on the last law, and it is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. I'm gonna go back in the slides because I need to remember what we talked about the last time. We're going fast. So we did the law of relativity. We did the law of compensation, and we did the law of inspired action. And those were pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We did talk about the law of inspired action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you do nothing, you're gonna get nothing.
Exactly.
You gotta put in the work. Manifestation is not it. So I'll say it's not a magic trick, but I will say it is a magic trick all at the same time. It depends on how you view magic or miracles or things like that, right?
Mhm.
We tend to take things like the fact that the earth is rotating around the sun and doesn't get so close that we get burned. We tend to take it for granted, not realizing that that is some powerful magic. We can't explain it. We don't know how it works. We have some notion around the fact that it does work, but we don't understand it. And so to me, that's a miracle. To me, that's magic. And so to say that manifestation is not magic is really the same thing as saying the rotation of the earth around the sun is not magic. But at the same time, it is, because there are things in our life that just happen, right? We don't know. It's like things just fall into alignment and it becomes so. If you had tried to do it at another time or another day, it would not have played out in the way that it played out. And so there is some magic to manifestation, right? To be inspired to take a particular action, right? There is some magic to that, especially when the action leads to right results, to putting you in positions that are very much in alignment with who you are and where it is that you want to go, right? I think about a lot of the times that the actions that I took in one moment, I didn't know that they were paving the way for the next moment. And oftentimes when we're truly in touch with ourselves and what motivates us, what guides us, then those actions fall in alignment. And when I think about inspired actions, I think of the scripture that says that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God, right? And we have this notion of righteousness that means, oh, you're walking around with your collar zipped up and you don't wear any makeup, or everything you do is according to some moral code. But righteousness is more like of being in alignment, being in alignment with the truth of who you are. And therefore, your steps are ordered by what is inside of you, the God that is inside of you, right? The God that is you. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's how my take on inspired action and how inspired actions lead us to where we need to be. Any questions from the last class? Any thoughts or comments from the last class before we move on?
Yes. I wanted to say the law of compensation. I don't know why, but I really start to understand that. And it's
Mhm.
amazing how when you start understanding each of the laws, they're so interrelated.
Yes.
And when
Yeah.
they talk about how everything is one,
Yeah.
but I feel like the law, like all the laws are really one, but they're broke down into specific parts, like they're part of a spectrum.
Yeah.
They're connected. It's
Yep.
almost like, it's just weird to me. It's like the law of polarity. It's weird. I want to say the law of polarity is like, that spectrum for it. But then
Yeah.
when I started looking at each one, I said, well, it's weird that if you line them all up, it's something about them that connects.
Exactly.
Yes, but that law of compensation, it really, to me, is just like, oh my gosh, you're going to be rewarded whether you consider it good or bad. And you're gonna have to deal with it. So I feel like when you talk about the inspired action, be
Mhm.
what action you put effort into,
Right.
it's going to come back. That law of compensation is going to show up. And so it's just crazy. I'm saying that, and I also feel like I'm talking in circles because I want to go into all these other laws while I'm talking,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're so connected. They're all
They are. Yes. And we'll talk about that connectedness later on because it all sums up to one thing. And we'll get to that one thing. And it's lessons for life. They are so connected, it's almost impossible to talk about them separately. And that's why we bring in the conversation about the law of attraction. When they did the movement for The Secret, right? And Wayne Dyer was involved, and Michael Beckwith was involved, and all these phenomenal people were involved in talking about the law of attraction. But Wayne Dyer and Michael Beckwith both came back later on and said, we kind of did you a disservice because all we did was talk about the law of attraction. We didn't talk about all the other pieces that go into the workings of the law of attraction, all these other laws that come into play when you're moving through the thought process of law of attraction, right? And so the reason they did that was because they are all connected. And to truly get the gist of it, to truly understand it, you have to know the rest of it. And that's why we're teaching this in the way that we're teaching. So I see Hope joined in. Hey, Hope, how you doing? We're just doing our little module 6 review. So if you have any questions or thoughts before we move on, feel free to throw them out there.
I just wanted to come and hear something positive. So I'm just here.
Understandable. And we'll try and keep it that way today. We're all about the positivity. All right, we got some more folks coming.
Letitia,
Yeah.
I wanted to say, although they only gave us a little bit, I will say, for me, it started a whole new journey. So they gave us to start doing the research. So
Exactly. Yeah, it was the catalyst for a lot of people to look into this stuff. Yeah, very true. Anybody else? Hey, Karen, glad you could join us. We have not even fully gotten started, so you really hadn't missed anything. I have the floor open right now for any questions or comments about the last module.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Good deal. And the shocker of all shockers for everybody is this is the last module of this class. We have gone through all 12 of the universal laws, and with the exception of the law of perpetual transmutation, which we'll go through tonight. And then we'll talk about what's next and level of consciousness and manifestation. Okay, so let's get started. Law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And I always have to remember to say that because it's not just perpetual transmutation, But this particular law states that energy is constantly moving, transmuting, or transferring, and it is always in motion. And what I love about this law is that it says this one thing, that it can never be destroyed, and it can't be created anymore. It can neither be created nor destroyed. It's only converted from one form of energy to another. Now, to me, that is probably one of the most powerful things about this perpetual law of transmutation of energy, because for me, it answered the question of the afterlife. You know, we recognize as spiritual beings that we are energy. As a matter of fact, if you take some night vision goggles, the way that you see people at night is their energetic imprint, right? They're throwing off heat, as they say, and that heat gives them an aura of light, something to look at, right? And so we can see that we are emitting energy from our bodies. And that recognition alone lets you know that there's something more to you than just your human experience, right? Now, how I say it brings me a whole lot of peace and a whole lot of understanding of the afterlife. You know, as a kid, I was really kind of curious and inquisitive about stuff. And growing up in church, I used to hear the old folks say that I'll see, when people passed away, they'd see them again, and they couldn't wait to get to heaven so they could see their mothers and things like that, right? And as a kid, I used to always wonder, well, you know, if my grandmother passed away, what was she, how would I recognize her in heaven? Would she be in the same body that I was familiar with in heaven? And, and this was another one of my crazy questions. Why would she want to get to heaven and be old, in an old body, right? So I finally began to put two and two together when I began to understand transmutation of energy. Because as an energetic being, you really, it's not your energy or your spirit that grows old. It's your encasing, your house. Your house grows old. The house is the body, and the body is the house for the spirit. That's why when you go to a grave, and you might, you know, if you dig it up, if you want to do something crazy like dig up a grave, you can find the bones, right? And the flesh has just gone back to dust. There's no spirit there anymore. So the house is just the encasing, but the spirit has transmuted into another form. It may have been reincarnated, and a lot of folks say that they see some loved one in a child that's just been born, right? Oh, they remind me of so and so. They just like their great grandfather. They never met him, but they got mannerisms just like him. So their energy may be transmuted into this newly born child, or their energy may be transmuted into light and connected with all that there is again as they've gone on to their final reward, right? As they reincarnated and learned their lessons, they moved on to the next level of being. And so the law of perpetual transmutation of energy lets me know that there is truly no such thing as death. It's truly moving from one state to another state. There's no end because there was not a beginning for the spirit. The spirit is just free and transforming, right? This also means that the energy in the universe is always transmuting into and out of form. At no time will the energy be standing still. And it's so funny because we think that our universe is not expanding, but I saw something on Facebook the other day talking about how they're starting to see the beginning of a new planet form in space. I'm like, holy crap. If that is the truth, then that has got to be the most amazing thing ever to watch a planet starting to form. Audrea, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was getting ready to type it in. The earth is, they said the earth is healing itself
Yes.
with the sun. What I forgot what that shield is around the earth. They've noticed it started healing itself. And I was like, this is amazing, because I've been hearing my whole life that we've messed it up, you know. And
The ozone layer.
yes, it's
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Once again, perpetual transmutation of energy is kind of at play here. To heal yourself is to take energy that may seem to have dissipated and give it new life, right? So that is that perpetual transmutation of energy. There, look, if you're not keeping up with what's going on with NASA, you might want to. There's a lot of interesting things that pop up on NASA's website. So just pay attention, because as I do, I'm seeing these universal laws and things like that coming into play. Yeah, NASA's got cool stuff. So, all right, to understand the law of perpetual transmutation of energy better, I pulled out this example of water. You know, water can be in a liquid form, water can be in a solid form, water can be in the clouds forms, and even in the form of mist and steam, right? The interesting thing about water is that circumstances and situations cause it to change. So for example, this iceberg down here at your bottom left, this iceberg starts out as solid, but as it travels south in the Atlantic Ocean, not the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, it starts to melt. As it gets warmer and closer into the warmer climates, it begins to melt, and then it becomes a liquid. Well, as that water in the Pacific Ocean, you know, all the whole entire ocean is connected, right? It's all the same water. As that water rotates and moves over into the warmer climates of the Atlantic Ocean, then it starts to heat up. And I don't know when the last time you went to Florida, but Florida has this amazing cycle that happens during the spring, during the warm climates, which is basically from March to about December, where the ocean waters heat up, right? And then they begin to evaporate into the sky. And then they turn into clouds. And the next thing you know, well, no, they don't turn into clouds, they turn into mist or steam, right? And the next thing you know, we're having this torrential outpour of rain, as we see on the bottom right of the screen. This is energy changing forms, going from a solid to a liquid, to a mist, to a cloud, and then back to rain again. It's the same water. It never goes anywhere. It's just changing forms. We may have many different names for it, but it's still just water at the end of the day. And so we see perpetual transmutation of energy in everything, in ourselves, in our thought processes, in our attitudes, and even in nature. So it's a pretty powerful concept if you think about it. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to point out today was that perpetual transmutation of energy, and I want to read this to you so I get it right. I got to pull it up right quick. I really need two screens nowadays to make sure that I'm getting everything that I need to have for you guys, because there's so much information. I got to get to it. Correspondence. Give me just 1 second. I got a lot of stuff here. I'm sorry. All right, we are there. So what I wanted to share with you was that once I said of this, of the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, it means that you can also transmute your own energy. You can transmute your own energy in order to manifest things you want. If energy is always in motion, you can use that knowledge to move through the different forms of energy to your benefit. As an example of this, you would take excitement that you have, that you may feel in your body, and channel it into creativity. Taking happiness, for another example, and transmuting it into a visualization exercise. Or channeling even your anger, right? Your angry feelings into power during a workout. So can you imagine, and we talk about doing this all the time, especially as it relates to energy. I just let him in, thank you. Especially as it relates to energy, anger. A lot of the times boxers start out boxing as a way of dealing with their anger issue. They're releasing that energy. They're doing something with that energy. And a lot of the times, one of the things that we are challenged with when we try to meditate is dealing with the energy that we have pent up inside of us. And so running becomes a form of meditation for people who are anxious and nervous and can't sit for periods of time, right? I found, and I've watched Muslims pray, right? And Muslims do an interesting thing when they pray. There's a lot of movement in their prayers. And I'm like, as they move, as they stand up and then go down and kneel and bow on the rug and then do their prayer, get up and stand back up again, they're moving energy in their body. Stagnant emotions are being shuffled and rearranged in their bodies. And so this is a process of transmutation of energy, right? So if you ever find yourself in a place of anger or a place of bitterness, start doing something like yoga or start integrating some movement into your prayers, because in this way you move the energy from where it is stuck, and you begin to transmute it, right? You begin to transmute it. Oh, it's me and this phone just go struggle today. All right, the other thing I wanted to mention about perpetual transmutation of energy is that as we talk about taking your happiness and channeling it into creativity, things like that, this feeds into some manifestation rituals that we do called visualization. Now, one of the things that they encourage you to do in visualization is to take something that makes you feel really, really great, makes you very filled with joy. For example, for me, is my grandson. My grandson is like joy in a bubble, right? So just hanging out with him because he's such a cool character, very, very sweet child, and a lot just silly, very silly. And so to spend time with him always makes me feel good. And so whenever I do a visualization exercise to get the feeling that I want to have manifested in the future or for a particular goal, I use him because I can always think it always brings me joy to just see his face, right? And so that same joy I put towards what it is I want in the future. So these are visualization exercises. Now, for those of you who studied with us metaphysics a couple of years ago, what they told us was a key to manifestation was being able to feel internally, and I mean deeply feel, not just I want to feel, right? No, deeply feel the experience of what it is that you desire. So say you want a happy relationship, right? Marriage, or to get married or anything like that. Your visualization exercises will include seeing yourself going and getting married, or seeing yourself spending time with your loved one, your future loved one. Whether you can actually visualize that person is neither here nor there. But if you can see yourself in it and then begin to feel the experience of it, then the likelihood of you actually manifesting it is stronger, right? So this is kind of like a little mind trick that we play on ourselves to bring that feeling tone, that vibration of that joy we desire to experience into that moment. They call it borrowing from the past to create the future. So this is a transmutation of energy in and of itself. You're moving that energy from one place and putting it towards another. Any questions about that while I get this cough out?
No questions. I just think it's very powerful and true.
Mhm.
And I love the picture.
Yeah, and
You
you can
love
also
the picture?
and you can also do that with your affirmations. You know, just if you say them out loud, let's say it like you mean it, and just
Yes.
speak it out, you know, where you want to be, and you know, you're going to dinner with your nice date, and just go into detail, and like you say, feel it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I will be honest with you. I was a non-traditional student when I got my first degree. Well, in all of the degrees, to be honest with you. But the first degree was the hardest. And many, many, many days I wanted to give up. And what I had to learn how to do, I started out trying to visualize graduating, right? That was too hard for me because graduation was too far off. I wanted it to be today. I needed quick wins, right? I needed something that was closer to me to keep me motivated. And so instead of visualizing graduation, I would visualize my grades at the end of the semester and how happy and how proud I would feel at the end of the semester when I got all A's, or when I got A's and B's, or made the dean's list, things like that. So remember, as you begin to start visualizing things, to use things that are very helpful to you and will keep you on track without setting yourself up for failure looking too far off, like I did in the beginning, because it really did create a level of frustration to me to visualize too far off. I had to bring it to some closer, quick wins. All right, so that's transmutation of energy. Real simple, right? You can transmute good into bad. And it goes back to, as Audrea was saying earlier, this is law of polarity right there. You got on one end hate, on the other end love. They are the same thing. They're just lower scales. And so transmutation of energy is saying that I am going to take this hostility, this hatred, and I'm going to transmute it and move it up the scale, getting closer and closer to love. So now, I've got here what's next. Our whole entire conversation about the 12 universal laws has been about manifestation. And I know a lot of people get caught up in manifesting money or manifesting a house or manifesting material things. But the truest version of manifestation is the transformation of our states of consciousness, right? It reminds me of Jesus is saying that we should seek first the kingdom of heaven and all these other things will be added unto us. You know, yes, we know that we need a place to live. Yes, we know that we need some decent money. But if we seek to do the work of the inner transformation first, everything we need will be provided for us to do, right? So Charles Fillmore, in one of his books, talked about the different states of consciousness. And he put them in 4 categories. He called them the lowest level, victim consciousness. And it is a belief or a way of being that says, I have no control of my life. I have, everything happens to me, right? And I'm just a victim of circumstances. How many of you know people who are victim of circumstance? You know, they never have, it's not their fault. It's always somebody else's fault that they're unhappy. They don't know how they ended up in this place, right? When the truth is, everybody has some level of responsibility, right? Even when things fall apart or there's a big argument or some big blowout, everybody has a part. Everybody has a part. But the victim consciousness says, actually, no, I didn't. This was done to me. I didn't have any hand in it, and I had no control over how it played out. That is the lowest level of consciousness. You will not manifest anything in a victim level except more victimhood. Except more victimhood. Because again, and I gotta say this about these universal laws, they always work. They're always working. You may not be conscious of the fact that they are working and playing out in your life, but they always are. It's just like the universal laws are having their effect on the universe in and of itself. The universe doesn't have to think about making the earth rotate around the sun. It just does. And it is a part of the universal laws. The victim is unaware of the laws, don't believe the laws, believe that the laws, if they do exist, work against them, right? That is the victim consciousness. You feel in flux between 1 and 4. Then there is the victim consciousness, the victor consciousness, he says. It says that I recognize, I'm beginning to come into realization that some things are within my control. And if I think about it and I push hard enough, then I can overcome it, right? I can overcome it. And the victim mentality, whenever I think of the victim mentality, I think of the warrior fighting. And I think Wayne Dyer described this level as the warrior level. We are conquering, we are overcoming, and we are taking what it is that we desire, right? It's a great place to be. I think a lot of people would benefit greatly by getting into the victor consciousness because they've been a victim for so long. That is a major transformation, by the way. I don't take any of this lightly because the work that it takes to move from a victim consciousness into the slightest bit of victor consciousness is tremendous for some people, right? It's tremendous. So that should be rewarded. But that's not the end. The next stage is the vessel consciousness. I am an instrument of God. And it always takes me to St. Francis of Assisi's poem.
Make me a channel of your peace. Make me a
Yes.
channel of your peace.
Yes, let me be an instrument of thy peace. Yes. St. Francis of Assisi was in the vessel consciousness, saying that But in the vessel consciousness, we're still saying that we're separate from God, that God is somewhere else. And we invite God to come in and take control of us and flow through us. We invite divine energy to flow through us, right? But that still is a level of separation. Great level to be, awesome level to be, no doubt. Some people never make it here. So if you made it there, bravo, right? You recognize that there's something in the world bigger than you and you want to be a part of it, right? But the highest level of consciousness is what they call verity or truth consciousness. And that is the level that Jesus came to, right? That is the level of I and my Father are one. The Father and I are one. And that is the recognition that if you want to see God in the world, then you be it. If you want to see goodness in the world, then you be that goodness. If you want change in the world, then you be that change, right? You be that change. There's a song that they sing in the Unity Church called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. We are the ones that we seek, right? We're the love that we seek. And we are the harvest that we reap. Who we are is what determines what the world is. And so when we step into that, then we can change things. This verity consciousness is also important because it puts control of how things are back in our hands. It's not the politicians' fault that things are the way it is. It's not other people's fault that things are the way it is. And we, if we choose to, can change the way things are. We all contribute, we all can make the difference, right? That is verity consciousness. Any questions or comments about that? Anjana, I saw you said you struggled between 1 and 4. I will tell you this, all of us struggle. We flip-flop in and out of these different levels of consciousness on a regular basis. There are moments where I feel the oneness. I am moving. I know it. I feel divine energy as me, flowing through me, changing the atmosphere. And then there are moments where I'm like, I can't do nothing. I feel like crap. They won't let me, right? They won't let me be great.
And I have to tell this whole group, I think Letitia pulled me out of that victim consciousness the whole of last year. God help her. She had to struggle to get me out of that. But I realized that it is so easy to fall back.
Yeah.
If you're not cautious, because I know I fell into that mode for a long time till I had to be helped out of it. But it's like you have to be ever vigilant of your thoughts, and like you spoke last time, constantly look for negativity in your thoughts, and it's exhausting sometimes, but that's the work that is needed, I guess.
Yeah, it gets easier. That part gets easier. Yeah. So as we're talking about, again, I cannot stress this enough. True manifestation is this: moving from a victim consciousness to a verity consciousness. If I want a better life for me and my family, I am empowered to make it that way. I don't have to wait on anybody to empower me to be so, to do so. I don't have to pray to God and ask him to give me, him or her, to give me anything. It's already been given to me. Everything I need has already been provided. I've just got to lay hold to the truth of it. And that is the verity consciousness, right? All right. The verity consciousness also speaks about truth. It's also known as truth consciousness, right? And the truth is that the power to create the lives we desire is not outside of us, it's always been inside of us. And you'll see here, I have a picture of a little acorn and an oak tree. And I learned something today. I thought you had an acorn, you get an acorn tree, but actually what I found online was an acorn would make an oak tree. Go figure, it depends on the type of acorn it is. So I learned something today. But the reason these pictures is there is because I want you to understand, as we go back to look at one of the first universal laws, that was the all in the all and the all is all, right? And the concept of involution and evolution that we talked about in the beginning. Everybody remember involution and evolution just a little bit? Okay. So there is this notion among the Hermetic philosophers that in the case of involution, divine energy was only involved once. Involution was a one-time deal. So that everything, and Jesus said this one time, everything that you need to create a good life has already been given. This is why involution from the Hermetic philosopher's perspective no longer occurs. Everything that the universe needed in order to exist was provided in the beginning. What does that look like? That looks like an acorn and a tree. Everything that the acorn needs to become a tree is already within it. It is the seed. And all that seed has to do is to release what is in it and allow it to grow. The same thing holds true of us. We call it the divine potential of man. Within you was all the potential of you. Who you need to be, who you want to be, is already there. Your job is to shed the layers, the unnecessary layers of untruth, like you're weak, or you have something to fear, or you're not capable, you're stupid, you're not smart enough, to release all of those things that keep your divine potential enclosed in a shell, so that the truth of who you are can come forth. Release limitations, lack mindset, and become the abundant tree that you really are. It's really kind of interesting because in the Bible, there's a point there where it says that we are to be trees, that we were trees of life, right? And that through our own work, our own growth and development, not only do we become trees, but we provide shelter, nourishment, and a whole lot of other things to those around. Anjana?
Yeah, I it was very interesting. I'm sorry, I instead of putting it in the chat, I thought it's easier to talk. It is very interesting that you say that, because every time I listen to the Bible, I feel I'm listening to the Vedas. So it's the same thing, and again, it confirms to me that there's only one, you know. And
Yes.
in Sanatana Dharma, we say that our soul, which is divine, we are divine, and we are covered by kleshas, or 5 layers or sheets called koshas. And once we purify the koshas, means we recognize it and we clear it, then your divine self shines forth. So the whole purpose of your birth is to clean your koshas, or to recognize the gunk that we have accumulated and to shed it.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
These layers of gunk. I like that word. Get rid of the gunk.
Power wash.
Yes, do a power wash. That is an awesome visual. washing off the gunk so that the divine energy can flow. Imagine, yeah, I'm seeing this visual of the gunk. Have you ever had to clean out your plumbing?
No, Lord.
The drain in the bathtub, all the hair in the bathtub, it's clogging it up, and it's causing a slow drain. So while
Yeah.
you have great potential, your drain is clogged, and that energy that water isn't flowing through you, right? So you have to clean out the gunk, get
Yeah.
those snakes, and pull out all that hair. I just did that last week for my granddaughter's house, full of hair, and now they're wondering why the water isn't flowing and released. So this is the whole goal of all the 12 laws, right? The 12 laws are designed to remind you of this verity consciousness, that within you lies the power, and your job is to find it. All right, so we've talked about them all. The law of divine oneness says that God is in me. God is the actions of God are my actions. The thoughts of God are my thoughts. Me and God are one. That's the law of divine oneness. The challenge for us in the law of divine oneness is the recognition of it. Because as long as we don't realize that everything we need has already been placed in us to be like God. That's why we're called sons and daughters of God, right? Because you can't be a son and daughter and not have the same DNA as the mother and father. You cannot. You wouldn't exist otherwise. You would not be their sons or daughters. So that same DNA that created the universe is the DNA that is within us. We have the power to create. We are co-creators in this dance called life, right? That is the law of divine oneness. The law of vibration says that as you are, things are attracted to you. As you raise your vibration, remember I said that Jesus once said that seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. That's law of vibration. As you begin to vibrate higher, you start to really hone in on the law of attraction, because as you vibrate higher, the things that are energetically matched to you will be attracted to you. So, and I'm going to move to this other one, law of correspondence. How do we vibrate higher? We change our thoughts. Law of correspondence is as above, so below. What they're saying is, as you think, so is your life, right? Your life corresponds with the thoughts in your head. If you have thoughts that say, I can win, I can do this, I can achieve this next level, then the next level will correspond. You're vibrating at a higher level, you're corresponding to that next level. It has no choice but to break open and let you in, right? Your thoughts matter. How you think matters. How you allow your thoughts to run rampant in your head matters. And that brings us into the law of cause and effect. What's the first cause of any effect in our lives? Anybody?
Our
Yes,
thoughts.
our thoughts. Our thoughts are the first cause. The Hermetic philosopher said that the way that the universe was created was not by hand, it was not through a physical thing, but it was through the power of the imagination. Things first begin in our thoughts. The architect first sees the idea of a home in their mind, or a building or any other structure in their minds. And then they begin to bring it into reality, bring it into form. That is the law of cause and effect. And Lord knows, I really would love to show you guys, if you haven't seen my pictures on Facebook from the Hoover Dam, all I can say is President Hoover was operating at Nikola Tesla level when he thought of the Hoover Dam. I'm like, some angels had to descend and come talk to him for him to come up with something as brilliant as that Hoover Dam and use it to generate energy. But all of that came through thought. How do I resolve this problem? What can I do? And then how can I take it to a next level? So cause and effect, right? Law of compensation, very closely related to the law of cause and effect. What you put out will come back to you. You'll reap what you sow, right? You put out good, good is, and this is the beauty of the universe. The universe multiplies. You know, you put out good, don't give up, don't lose hope, because it's coming back through the law of compensation, right? And when it comes back, it's going to be multiplied. So keep doing good, keep putting good energy out there, keep looking and keep looking to receive, right? You put good in the world, that means there is good in the world, and therefore you can receive good in the world. Yeah. And every time I think of this, I think of Om Shanti, right? The words Om Shanti. And Ricky Byers' song, Om Shanti. When there's peace in my heart, then there's peace in the world, right? It begins with me. Go ahead, Angela. You're muted.
I'm on mute, sorry. So it was interesting what you said about the law of compensation, not and the law of cause and effect also, thoughts being the first cause, because in Sanatana, and I keep bringing Sanatana Dharma, I'm sorry, just so that I can show you the parallel between the two. In that, the ultimate prayer, the most powerful prayer in Sanatana Dharma is the Gayatri mantra. It's to Gayatri, the goddess of wisdom. It's not to anything else. It's not for money. It's not for power. It's for the goddess of wisdom. And all it says is, let all noble thoughts come to me from all sides, and let me be the sun. It's the power of the sun, because sun represents knowledge, and light.
Yeah.
So we invite her into us so that we can become the beacon of light. And it just says, let noble thoughts come to me from all sides.
Yes. That is a powerful prayer. Powerful. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So the law of gender. Let me see, law of compensation,
Law of attraction.
We've already kind of hit on the law of attraction. I'm going to skip to the law of gender, because the law of gender says basically that our thoughts should be motivated by that masculine energy. The divine energy. The divine energy is always masculine, right? Where does the divine energy come from? Within us. That spirit, that thing that is most like God, that is the divine energy. So we use that masculine energy, and when we say masculine, we don't mean manly, we mean directed energy. That the directed energy that projects onto the feminine energy, the creative energy, right? The feminine energy is all about creativity, right? And bringing form to our ideas. So the idea comes from within, that masculine energy. It is projected onto our creation ability, causing things to come to life, to well up inside of us, like becoming pregnant, right? We become pregnant with the idea through the process of the feminine energy. And then we give birth to it. We give birth to it. We give birth to our businesses. We give birth to our homes. We give birth to our lives. We give birth to children, right? Through the combination of the masculine and feminine energy. And remember, the masculine and feminine energy is embodied by in all humans. It's not, oh, you only have feminine energy. No, you have both. Every gender, every sexuality, let me say that, every sexuality has both genders within it. And the trouble is we might present as one or the other that we put names to, but we all have divine masculine, divine feminine energy within us. All of life has divine masculine and divine feminine energy. That's how life sustains itself, through the connection between divine feminine and masculine. Yes, divine feminine and divine masculine. All right. So now we move on to the laws of relativity, the laws of rhythm, and the law of polarity. And I'm going to do the law of rhythm and polarity together, because the law of rhythm says that life has a distinct order to it. There are rises and falls. There are ebbs and flows. There's a rhythm to life. And our job is to become very aware of where we are in that rhythmic dance, what season it is in our lives. Is it winter? Is it fall? Is it spring? Is it summer? And then as we become aware of what season it is in our lives, we make decisions about what we need to do. Say you find yourself in a season of winter, right? Now, I've been in a winter before, so I know how painful it can be when you first start going through winters. But you make the best of winter. Winter is not necessarily a time of inactivity. There's a lot of things that take place, even in the trees that seem dead during the wintertime. There's a lot of things that are taking place in the tree. You may not be able to move as quickly or do as much in the wintertime, but you can do a lot of things. For example, wintertime is a time where I do a lot of study. I do a lot of learning during the wintertime, because I don't have a lot of distractions to pull me away from sitting and growing and really doing some inner work on myself, right? Doing some inner work on myself. Those seasons of winter before you need to do those inner work, because spring is coming and you need to be ready for spring. You want to be able to blossom fully, right? When spring comes. That's the law of rhythm. The law of polarity feeds into that notion. It says that for everything, there's an opposite. For every winter, there's a spring. For every summer, there's a fall. In order to transmute the energy of winter, you need to figure out how to move up this spectrum of polarity, because winter and spring are the same thing. Let's say they're both seasons, right? They're both seasons. It's just degrees of heat or the lack thereof, right? So in order to make winter more spring-like, you turn up the heat. In order to make summer cooler, you adjust the thermostat and lower the heat. And so you created stability. These law of rhythm and the law of polarity bring in the notion of the pendulum swing. And I know Audrea loves the pendulum swing. Everybody else remember the pendulum swing? Yep, for as far as you go to the left, the pendulum is going to swing equally far to the right. So for example, if you have abundance, a period of great abundance, there's going to be a slowdown. And business owners know this well, that there is a season where they're going to have a harvest. And then there's going to be a season where business slows down, right? How do you mitigate the swing in the opposite direction so it's no longer feast or famine? You stabilize the flow of money. You store up you plan for the swing in the opposite direction, right? And you put aside some money, you invest in some more stabilized stuff so that your business survives through the swing in the opposite direction. We do the same thing in life. This is the law of polarity. And as we learn and are aware of the pendulum swing, then we can mitigate the effect of the swing in one direction or another through our own actions, right? Relativity. Somebody help me with relativity. I got so much of this stuff in my mind, and I kind of lost law of relativity. It's all relative, is what I really want to say.
Perceptions.
Yes, thank you. My mom always says, you got too much stuff in your head. And then sometimes I feel that. Yeah, so our perception controls our reality, right? If we sit up and say, oh my God, this pendulum is swinging so far to the left, everybody's going to be in abject poverty, then guess what? You'll probably be in abject poverty too. You know, how you think about it is how it's going to play out in your life. But do you know how many people see the pendulum swing to the left and they say, oh, there's an opportunity here? There are some people who say, I see things coming to a slowdown. Let me look to see what the need will be in the future, and let me meet that need. And so they overcome the swing of the pendulum through the way that they perceive it, through the way that they receive it. Instead of seeing it as a negative, they see it as a positive and an opportunity. They're always looking for opportunity, right? So that's the law of polarity. The law of relativity. That brings me to the law of inspired action. See how we're all connected, right? To say, what is the opportunity in this moment, and to take action, that is the law of inspired action all day long. How can I meet the need? Let me take this action. Let me take this action. Where is the opportunity? I'm going to jump on it. I see it. I see it. I'm going to take advantage of it. That is an inspired action. And that is an inspired action based on what people call wisdom. Wisdom is an understanding of these laws. Great wisdom comes from just understanding the law of polarity, the law of relativity, and the law of rhythm. That is a massive level of wisdom right there, is to understand just those three laws. But to understand and comprehend the rest of them, very wise. You are wise, right? And then finally, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. What we've just talked about. We can change things. We can make things different. It might seem bleak right this moment, but I can channel this feeling of fear into courage. And this courage will lead me in my inspired action. I can channel this victimhood to become a victor. I can channel this anger, this resentment in a more positive direction. Now, I can channel it in a negative direction, but will I be happy with the effects of it? A lot of people channel it in a negative direction, and they're not happy with the effects of it, right? How do I use the energy that I feel right now to create this joy that I'm experiencing in this moment, to create the next moment? That's perpetual transmutation of energy. Any questions? That's like a 5-minute summation of the 12 universal laws. All right.
I was gonna say there were several things, but two things I'll say. I love when you were going through the 4 areas about, our mindset from the victim to, I forgot what the 4th one was.
Mm-hmm. Veritas.
Veritas, that it is really something. And I know what's her name? She's on here. I can't see it because you got the PowerPoint up, but I love when she started coming to the class because she was so honest. Karen, she was
Yeah.
so honest, when she would say, I'm really trying to process this, because it made me think about many years ago when I left traditional church. And I feel like because we were indoctrinated with so much for us to think that we could just stay at one because we've gained certain information. I don't know how honest that is, but I love when she would come in and say, that's different. I'm processing that because it made me think about my journey. And I'm like,
Right.
And so going through those different mindsets, because some days, I feel like I'm at the third one. I feel like I'm at the third one. But then next thing you know, something will happen, and then you can
Yep.
be a victim. And then you're saying, wait a minute. I always ask the questions, who is they? So I love when you said they won't let me. And I always ask myself, I said, who is they? Who is
Yeah.
that won't let you? And you really process those things, and then I'll get to the top one, what you said, the verity, and it's just that was very interesting to see it actually in words, the different consciousness, and then just with it, then going to these laws. I tell you, when I think about them, and someone has done something, just from studying it the very first time in our class, I tell people at work when stuff happens, I said, y'all ain't about to make the spirit get me. I can't do that, And people say, how are you just like that? You just letting it go. I said, because I said, you guys go to church, so when it said vengeance is mine, said I said, so I just leave it at that and know there's going to be some type of divine intervention where I don't have to worry about it. So I don't have to put myself out there, because if I do a deed and I know it was out of vengeance or I was angry, I feel like my punishment is that I have to think about I did something that I ain't have to do. And I'm like, I just don't want to deal with that in my head.
Exactly.
So, but that was all I wanted to say.
Good deal. Yeah, that law of compensation will kick in. It does kick in. So,
When I want to see it happen. No, I'm messing with you. Some days I'm like, can we please see that happen?
okay.
But
I tell you.
but
So, what? Go ahead, Anjana. Were you going to say something?
it's interesting that you should say this, because when I used to go to my guru, when I was newly starting on him, I would go and whine to him, about and he would tell me, he says, you are the hair of the Lord. And he said, not the hair, but the hair of the Lord. And he says, do you see millionaire kids of people, children whose parents are millionaires behave like they're paupers?
Yes.
And he said, why do I see you whining?
I love the gurus. They are so straightforward and honest. they, like my mom said, they put it where the ghost can get it sometimes.
So they just made me realize when you said that we have to behave like the universe has already given us. So why are we behaving like we are paupers? But it is so easy to not remember that,
Yes, it is.
It's so easy to not remember that.
Yeah.
I wish more people knew about the universal laws, and they would be, it's so mainstream to think about the 10 Commandments, but I think these are prevalent in this age, the universal laws and the 4 agreements too.
Yeah. I actually recommend the 4 agreements to most of my coachees. Some of them have actually read it because it's really powerful. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share another thing. It was interesting that you said about the male energy and the female energy, because Shiva, who's the ultimate Brahman, he's considered the male energy, and from him comes Prakriti, which is nature. So, they have that symbol of where we pray to the Shivlinga, which is like a phallus. It looks like a phallus. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's a phallus. It's not really a phallus. It's a representation of both the female and the male, and you actually pray to the male energy so that you can manifest.
Yes, exactly.
So just a
Very
fact.
good. Awesome. I think I brought in Shiva and Shakti in one of our classes in relation to that. Yeah, good stuff. All right, so this I think this might be the last slide. It may not be, but this particular slide is taken directly from the book Ask and It Shall Be Given. I know most of you guys have heard of that if you've not read it, but it's by Esther and Jerry Hicks, The Teachings of Abraham. And it's all about what we've been talking about. It's the 12 universal laws, law of manifestation, things like that. And this was such a great quote. Yes, very powerful. I took directly from there. You are co-creating within a magnificently diverse universe. And it says, if you have the ability to imagine it or even think about it, this universe has the ability and resources to deliver it fully unto you. For this universe is like a well-stocked kitchen with every ingredient imaginable at your disposal. And within every particle of this universe is that which is wanted and the lack of it. This perspective of abundance and the lack of it is the environment in which focus is possible, and focus activates the law of attraction. If you do not have the ability to know what you do want, you will not have the ability to know what you do not want. And without the ability to know what you do not want, you could not know what you do want. And so it is through your exposure to life experience that your natural preferences are born. Knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want are two key things in manifesting your life, right? I think it's even more important to know what you do want more than it is to know what you don't want. And I'll give you a perfect example. I think this weekend came to teach me some lessons, right? There were several things I was supposed to do this weekend, but I have a habit of doing an interesting thing. I'll procrastinate and not make a decision. And what happens is my lack of the decision is a decision, especially if there's time involved, if there's a deadline involved, because my indecision causes me to not take the actions necessary to function in the decision. What do I mean? This weekend, there were a couple things on my plate that I was halfway committed to doing. One of which was to travel out of town and go and support somebody else on Sunday morning, right? And I fluctuated back and forth all weekend long about whether or not I wanted to do it. And things worked out where I could, but by the time I actually made the decision to do what I said I was going to do, time became the factor that made the decision for me. I was supposed to come up here to Atlanta to hear a friend of mine speak. I was wishy-washy up until about 9 o'clock in the morning. Because I waited till 9 o'clock in the morning to make a decision, time kicked in and it made the decision for me. By the time I left the house, got me and Nora dressed and got on the road, I would not make it in time to participate in the event. And so the decision was made for me. I was on the road probably about 30 minutes when the realization came. Google said, you'll arrive at about 11:40. It all started at 11 o'clock, probably was going to be over about 12:30. By the time I got there, got parked and sat down, everything would have been over, and I missed the introductory part. And so the decision was made for me. And as I reflected on it, I was like, this is very much how life is. When we don't make a decision about what we want, life makes a decision for us. Time makes a decision for us, because there's a limited amount of time to make anything happen in this world, right? And so the notion of really honing in, doing that inner work to understand who we are and why we are and how we are, and know what it is that we desire really matters. Most people, if you ask them right off the top of their head, what is happiness to you? What does happiness look like to you? They have no answer for you. What does it take to make you happy? They don't have an answer for that either. And because they don't have an answer, they're seeking something that they can't even imagine. And so the universe gives them whatever, because it's co-creating with their confusion. As we become more conscious of our thoughts, pushing away external motivators and getting true to ourselves, understanding our own true nature and what we truly desire versus what we've been taught to desire, only then can we begin to manifest the life we want. Only then, because otherwise it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. So that's, if you take anything from that, take that. Get in touch with yourself. Make sure you know what it is that you desire so that you can create it, because it's only you that's going to create it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Only you. And then the final slide is from The Wizard of Oz, a powerful story of a spiritual growth and development, where Glinda the Good Witch says to Dorothy, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it." What we learned from the 12 universal laws. The message is simple. Yeah, there are 12 universal laws. They seem a little complicated from time to time, but they all lead to the end result of this: that the power to create the life that you desire, to be who you want to be, has always lied within you. You just have to learn. Release all the projections, the other learning, and get in touch with your own self, your true knowledge of yourself, and then begin to live from that. That is the key and the message of the 12 universal laws. And that's all I have. Any questions or thoughts or comments? Yes, ma'am, Hope. I see you jumping in today.
Now, I just want to thank you for this, for including me in this, and specifically and particularly for today. Yeah. I joined just when we were talking about perpetual transmutation of energy, and I needed to hear that today. People don't know, I just had a major loss in my life, and I have been absent from this for a couple of weeks. And when I joined it today, you were talking about that, and I just really needed to hear that. And I thank you for it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I thought today's was very, very powerful. Yeah, and I love the picture of the energy coming out of the head. It just really,
yes,
yeah, fantastic. And the fact that energy is never destroyed, it just changes forms, gives us hope after this
yes,
life. But
yes.
you know, we want to make the most of it here today. And I haven't had an opportunity to get to really know everybody, but I really appreciate being a part of it. So thank you, Letitia. And thank you, Karen, for suggesting it. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to come.
Awesome, Vicky.
Great. This has been a great session, the whole thing. Thank you.
Good job, good job.
And I want to say the same thing. This has just been absolutely amazing. Even with myself and the growth, that I